Hello, friends. It's Nancy with Astrology and Angel Mediums. I'm a little hoarse. I've been a little sick. That's why I haven't been able to get these recorded. But I did want to do a pick-a-pile for today. So let me know what deck you are drawn to, and I will do some readings with that specific deck. So whenever you're ready, go check out the actual time cards for when your reading begins. So thank you so much for joining me. Have a good one, and I'll see you in your reading. Hello, pile number one. Thank you so much for joining me. I really hope that this reading finds you well. So we're going to start with the tarot cards. I've already shuffled everything. So let's see what cards we pull for you, and let's see what your reading has in store for you today. First one is the Page of Swords reversed. I feel like this one should be then the Knight of Swords upright. Oh, the Well, which is an extra card in this deck. And I'm also feeling the Empress and maybe something from over here. And the Two of Cups. Okay, lots of watery kind of elements going on here. All right, maybe we'll pull all of the cards that we want. How about that? So got the Bee, Victory. We'll grab Guides. And then, sorry if you hear my dog. She's very active today. Self-care and integration. She's usually just one to like lay around. Then we have the New Moon card. And finally, let's see. Take responsibility for how you feel. All right. Okay, I think I have everything that I want to pull for this pile. So let's hope that everything's in frame and that it looks semi straight. Okay. So for the cards that we pulled today, the very first tarot card I got was the Page of Swords reversed. So to me, this can just be an indication that maybe there has been some sense of a lack of movement, or maybe even a lack of being able to kind of break away from certain patterns, especially mentally. Maybe there's been a lot of like mental anxiety, or maybe it's been hard to kind of get some of the things that you would like to communicate across. So there may be a little bit of a holding back, so to speak, in some ways. And maybe you feel like it's been challenging for you to really express and get clear on what you believe, what you would like to kind of happen. And maybe there's even been a little bit of a lack of not to say clarity, but maybe there's been a lack of, again, kind of like a sense of availability to be able to kind of break away from the norms. And so maybe you've been too much in your head. You've been overthinking, overanalyzing. Maybe there's been a lot of like mental anxiety that's been kind of coming up that is making it a little bit challenging for you to see the next step and to see how things are trying to evolve for you, so to speak. So I think with the page, I think that it's more of saying like, don't go for the first thing that's been presented to you, because maybe there's something that isn't really what it looks like or what it should be like. Now, next up, we have the Knight of Swords, which this to me is almost saying like, as much as this may have been frustrating, feeling like there's been a lack of opportunity and availability to be able to step into something else, the Knight of Swords says, okay, so now we're going to come into something. It's about, you really charging full steam ahead, so to speak. But the thing with the swords is I feel like they, are very much about your communication, your connection, your words, how you are, communicating the things that you want. And I think with the Knight, it's really saying like, what message are you kind of spreading? What message are you here to deliver? What sort of things are you willing to kind of fight for when it comes to how you communicate and what you're trying to communicate at this time? So there may be a little bit of a challenge to not be so blunt or so honest that you tend to overlook how the things that you are saying and how you want to communicate them will land and how other people will receive them. So there is a little bit of the sense of maybe you're starting to see some momentum and movement in the areas regarding communication and connection, which goes very well with the message of Mercury stationing direct yesterday, but we are still in that shadow period. So maybe that's where this like Page of Swords kind of energy is at, where maybe there's a little bit of caution before you can really cut away from anything that you feel has been keeping you like either stuck or keeping you kind of small in some ways. Now, the Well, it's funny because I always pull this card, but I like always put it back. So I don't even know like what the intention of this card is. So I have no idea because anytime I get it, I'm like, oh, so the Well is the birthplace of ideas, inspiration, and transformation. All things are birthed from this creatrix, and knowledge flows freely to those who seek it. So this is about nurturing, opportunity, nature, and creativity. And it's funny because this is the nature nurture oracle. And both of those words kind of came up. So I think that this is maybe saying that you need to reconnect to that kind of creative, dynamic energy within yourself and being more centered and grounded in how you're nurturing yourself. How are you taking care of yourself? What things do you need to just kind of flow with? And what is it that maybe you've been holding back on that maybe no longer serves you or is no longer aligned with the things that maybe now you're coming to the realization that you want something different or you're willing to kind of move into the next phase and do something else. Now, underneath that, we have the Empress, which is another major card because the Well is part of the major cards. The Empress is really about nurturing, fertility, creativity, and I think it goes very well with the Well in the sense of it's kind of saying like we're inviting this energy and now we're actually going to do something with it. So some of these ideas that have been kind of formulating up here with this reverse Page of Swords and this Knight of Swords are, really saying, okay, as you cut away from anything that has been holding you back, it allows you to kind of flow into this next thing, which will really transform what it is that you're trying to call into your life. And so there is a sense of really reestablishing what it is that you want, what it is that you need, and being more connected to those different aspects of yourself. Now, when I think of the Empress, I think it's very much about just learning to kind of relax in your power in a lot of ways. It's about understanding that everything is coming together, everything is working. This is really about just giving it time to really be what it needs to be. And I think with the Empress is that it is this beautiful divine feminine energy. But I think the biggest thing with her is that, again, she's focusing on creating. She's focusing on fertility. Like, what is she nurturing to kind of grow into the next thing? Where is this kind of energy trying to take you? What sort of things are trying to establish themselves here for you? Now, finally, we have the Two of Cups, which is a card of love really coming together. I think that the biggest thing with this is that the Two of Cups can talk about intuition and creativity and relationships and connections in the sense of like heart to heart. And twos are really about choices and harmony and balance. So if things have been a little bit off kilter in some of your interpersonal relationships, I think with the Empress, it's almost saying like the more that you nurture yourself, the more that you kind of move into this well energy of taking care of whatever needs to kind of shift here, then the love that maybe you've been looking for within yourself or even in your interpersonal relationships, you'll start to really allow it to really flourish and to really kind of grow the way that it needs to. So I think with the Two of Cups, it can talk about really coming together with others. Maybe it's a time to get ready for future celebrations, to kind of make those plans, to really bring yourself back into balance and harmony with what it is that you're trying to kind of grow in different areas of your life. And I think with the Empress, it's almost saying like, you're ready to kind of call in the sort of energy that maybe you haven't really allowed yourself to have lately because you've been too focused on all of the anxieties and things that have been kind of calling your attention. So it's a little bit hard to kind of move into this flow. But I think that if you give yourself an opportunity, you'll have a lot of victory to be able to move into this next phase. Now, when I think of victory, I think of this energy of really allowing other people to celebrate you for your hard work and your efforts. When I think of bees, I think that they have very much this community hive mind kind of mindset, right? And I think the biggest thing is for a lot of us, we've kind of forgotten that humans are extremely social creatures. We need other people. And I think that this is almost saying, like, where are the people that you have surrounded yourself with? Where are the people that, are showing up for you? How can you really celebrate and feel victorious and supported and know that it's your hard work and efforts that are paying off, and really allowing you to show up in these ways. So when I think of the bee, I think it's very much saying, like, as much as you've worked hard, you also take some time out to celebrate and to enjoy and to, see that your hard work and efforts are needed and also should be celebrated. Now, next to that, we have guides, which again, this is kind of maybe a reminder, maybe with the Well card and even with the Empress, of like connecting back to, even with the Two of Cups, connecting back to that divine energy, to source, to creator, to God, to the universe, whatever it is that you want to, that you feel works for you. I think guides is almost saying, like, hey, you have this whole spiritual team that's wanting to work with you, but maybe you've put it off, or maybe you haven't felt like it's okay for you to ask for their help, or maybe you feel like you only get to ask so many times for assistance and things like that. So I think with the guides card, it's more of a reminder to say, hey, they are here for you. It's time for you to connect. It's time for you to ask for their guidance. It's time for you to kind of open yourself up to the possibilities of really moving into this next thing with a lot more ease. And in that, because of this kind of like community hive mind, they're like, we're here to help you too. You don't have to just do everything by yourself. You're not doing life by yourself. And I want to move on to self-care and integration. And I think that this goes very well with the the Empress card, where it's just a reminder that we need to take those steps back to take care of ourselves and to honor all of ourselves, like in different ways, however our body may need. And I think the important thing here is not just the self-care, it's the integration. It's the really transmuting the things that, we're learning, we're alchemizing these lessons, we're utilizing these things to kind of elevate where we're at, elevate ourselves, elevate what we need and what is trying to come into our lives. So I think the biggest thing here is that it's almost saying, hey, it's time for you to take some time out to, get back into your spiritual practices if you have any, maybe even like physical self-care, in the sense of, if you were someone that liked to do specific routines and things to take care of yourself, where can you kind of incorporate more of that to kind of integrate all of the things that have been happening around you? Now, next to that, I'm going to put this one up here, actually. We have the New Moon card. So this is all about beginnings and intention settings. It's all about rebirth and stillness and the initial stages. And it's very much about designing for your desires. Now, I'm not the best astrologer here because I haven't been keeping up with when the next new moon will be. I'm assuming it'll be in a couple of weeks, because we just had the full moon on the 23rd, the full moon in Scorpio. We're finally out of eclipse season. So I think that this new moon is kind of saying, how can you kind of start? And I think it's very Taurus-y kind of vibes that I'm seeing here with the roses and the crystals. I think it's really just reminding you of that sensual kind of nature, the physicality of being a person. And maybe it's asking you to kind of restart and kind of get fresh on what it is that you want for this season and for this year. The other thing with this is that it's really asking you to honor the stillness as things are growing. And I think it goes very well with the Empress energy, because it's like usually she's got a big round belly because she's, kind of full of life. And I think the one thing that we tend to forget is that creating a new life is a lot of hard work, even when you don't realize in the background what is happening. And so we need to kind of take it easy and not always just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and feeling like we have to always do in order for us to make some progress. Some things just need to be, decided on, and then we just need to release it and just let it be what it needs to be. So I think with the new moon, it's just a reminder of, setting those intentions, understanding that stillness, understanding that the initial stages are extremely important. So we have to just let them be what they're going to be. And finally, we have take responsibility for how you feel. And I think that this goes very well with the Well and the Two of Cups. And even with like the Page of Swords reverse, where I think it's almost saying like, how can you really step fully in what's been going on with yourself, and how can you reconnect to this energy in ways that feel more connected to who you are, what you want, and what you need. And I think the biggest thing here is that, I guess it's challenging for many of us to admit some of the things that we are feeling, because we look at it as though other people may perceive how we are feeling as a weakness or a defect, or as though something is inherently wrong with who we are. And the thing is that we as people are the ones that have assigned moral or morality to emotions. Emotions are just emotions. And I get it, because as someone that has a lot of anxiety and things like that, I get down on myself about it, because I'm like, oh, I need to get over it. And I think with this, it's almost saying like, just take responsibility for how you feel. It's not to say blame yourself. It's not to say kick your own ass about it. It's not to say that you're doing it wrong. It's more of just a reminder to say, take responsibility for how you feel. And if you're feeling anxious, look at what is it that is making you feel this way, and what can you do to improve upon that or to ease that. If you're feeling upset, again, just take stock, take accountability, take responsibility for those things, and give voice to them if needed, and allow them to have the space to be felt all of the way through. So thank you so much for joining me, pile number 1. I hope that this reading allowed you to get a little bit of clarity for this week, and I hope you take care. Take it easy. As always, make good choices, and thank you so much for joining me. Bye. Hello, pile number 2. Thank you for joining me. Let's see what the message is for you today. Page of Cups. The Empress. That's funny. I already pulled the Empress for the other set. The Nine of Cups. The Fool. And the Queen of Swords reversed. Yeah. I think we do want the Queen of Swords reversed. All right. Let's get one of these. We'll get one of these. Free Willy. Just kidding. Oh, okay. Interesting lot we have here. All right. All right. So are you ready, pile number 2? Okay. So for the actual tarot cards that I pulled for you, just make sure everything looks kind of straight. I hate whenever I look at the videos and I'm like, they look crooked. I promise it's not crooked. I think it's just my phone. So hopefully it looks straightish. Okay. So the very first card I got here, the Page of Cups, upright. I think that with this card, it's maybe a reminder that maybe you're still feeling a little bit fresh, a little bit new, a little bit inexperienced in certain relationships and connections, especially when it comes to trusting your intuition, allowing yourself to feel like it's okay for you to be connected the way that you are in different ways, whether that's through your intuition, whether that's through just giving yourself permission to kind of show up as you are. And I think it's interesting because This can maybe even talk about maybe you're dealing with someone who's a little bit more immature, a little bit naive, maybe somebody a little bit younger. And so there may be a lot of kind of emotional stuff coming up surrounding this relationship or this connection. And so that may be something that's kind of weighing a little bit heavy on your mind. And given that the next card was the Empress, we're kind of shown this like energy of like you're ready to kind of get yourself, excuse me, my bad. You're ready to get yourself a little bit more situated in who you are. Maybe you feel like it's easier for you to co-create the things that you want and that you need because you're not constantly feeling this kind of sense of what do I want? What am I doing? Where am I going? How are things going to look? The Empress to me is more of like that creativity, that fertility, that established kind of energy of feeling very much in control of her life in a lot of ways because she is allowing herself to be supported in so many different ways, whether it's through community, whether it's through connection, whether it's through, that creativity, that, really growing things, because that is essentially the gift of the Empress, is that she's here to kind of expand things. That's what the threes really do in tarot. And I think with her, it's that she's almost saying, like, how can we kind of move back into this energy of just really enjoying ourselves, really just co-creating a beautiful life that makes sense for who we are. Now, next up, we have the Nine of Cups, which is one of the more, I can't pick it up. It is one of the more positive and beautiful cards you can receive in the tarot deck because it really talks about your dreams coming true, your wishes being fulfilled. But the one thing with nines in tarot is that it's almost saying like there's something that you're almost there, but you have to let go in order to really move on to the lesson of the 10. And I think the biggest thing with the Nine of Cups is that maybe it's a reminder that you don't need to feel like everything has to be perfect in order for you to really get everything that you're looking for. Now, the thing with the Nine of Cups is I think like since it's more an individual versus like the Ten of Cups has like a family on it, I think that the Nine of Cups is almost saying like, what is it that you actually truly desire and want, and how can those things be fulfilled for you, especially given that the Empress is kind of like pushing this energy forward and kind of saying like, okay, what do you want? What do you need? What have you been creating? And now the Nine of Cups is saying, okay, are you going to just hang back and allow this energy to really take root so that you can really truly enjoy it for what it is? Now, I think with our wishes being fulfilled, many of us have a lot of things and those targets are constantly moving, right? We have a lot of things that like we want or have hoped for, and we're always like, I want this, and then circumstances will change, and so then we're like, okay, now I want this. We have to be very mindful of that energy of being very receptive to how things want to show up in our lives, especially if we don't always understand why they're trying to happen the way that they are. Now, underneath everything, we have the Fool, which is a beautiful card to kind of say we're on our way to new beginnings. We're on our way to opening ourselves up to, really trusting and moving into this next phase. This is very much about like adventures, getting out there. It is very much a lesson of understanding that sometimes we won't always know what we're doing until we get there. And a lot of the best experiences that we will have in life are only whenever we've gone through them versus really knowing how something is going to work out or be for us specifically. The other thing with the Fool is that everyone else calls him the Fool, right? Or discard the Fool. Like the Fool never says, I am the Fool. And so I think for many of us, we tend to forget that. We think, oh, I'm being foolish, or oh, I'm being this, or oh, I didn't know enough, or whatever. And we kind of get down on who we are. And the thing with the Fool is that he has perfect trust in the universe, that the universe is going to provide, that everything is going to come together the way that it needs to. And I think given that the Nine of Cups is kind of saying like, okay, this is what we're doing. It's like, what risks are you willing to kind of get out there and take and look foolish for, so to speak, in order for you to really achieve the sort of life that maybe you've really been wanting and to kind of establish yourself in the things that you desire? Now, the only reverse card that I pulled here is going to be the Queen of Swords. To me, the Queen of Swords is a card of like your truth, your empowerment, your sense of justice. It's kind of cold and calculating and blunt. This being reversed is almost saying that maybe it's been a little bit challenging for you to kind of get to the truth of who you are or what you want. Maybe it's been challenging to kind of open yourself up to others because maybe other people don't always receive what you have to share as openly as you would like. And so maybe there is a sense of you're struggling a little bit to feel grounded in some of the things that you desire for yourself because maybe it doesn't make sense to certain people. And so with that, it is kind of making it a little bit challenging for you to move past how these things may be received or how other people will allow you to show up in these things. Now, when I think of the Queen of Swords, yes, she can kind of come off as a little bit like calculating and like just very blunt. But I think that this being reversed here, it's not to say that you're dealing with maybe somebody that is like this. Maybe it's saying that you have kind of cut yourself off from your truth in some ways, or maybe it's been challenging for you to kind of allow yourself to really confront some of these things within yourself as far as like what it is that you really want. Because I think for a lot of us, we allow our interpersonal relationships to really dictate sometimes what we do and how we show up. And and I know for a lot of things, it requires a lot of trust in order for us to really like move into this next phase and to, do things that other people wouldn't necessarily just go off and do. So I think that this is kind of saying, as much as you are ready to kind of go off on your own next adventure, you're going to have to kind of surrender some of this sense of wanting to control how it's going to look or how it's going to show up for you. So let's move on to the cards that I pulled, the Oracle cards. So here we have Orca, which is all about the records. And it's interesting because I have a smaller version of this deck, and I always tend to struggle with the energy of what this card is really trying to tell me. Because to me, like orcas or killer whales, they're very intelligent and smart. And so it's like, I think there's like a little bit of a disconnect with my brain because I'm just like, well, they're very like intelligent and things like that. But I think with records being kind of the key word here is that maybe it's saying that you need to take stock and account of everything that you've already experienced and how you've been utilizing all that you are previously. And I think maybe it's a reminder for you that you know a lot more than you think you do, or you are a lot more experienced than you're giving yourself full credit for. And I think with the records card, it's just kind of a reminder. It's kind of saying like, hey, you will have all of the support that you need where you're at because you're building this community and you're connecting with others. And I think that's why we have this friendship card here, is that it's almost saying like, hey, rely on the people that have shown up with you and that are here with you in different ways. And I think even just looking at like, some of these cup cards here where it's almost saying like, maybe you're forgetting that you are very supported and you have people around you that want to see you thrive, that want to see you grow, that want to see you kind of move into this next phase. And you've just been questioning it because it feels a little bit uncomfortable, or maybe you are a little, I'm not going to say distracted, but maybe it's been challenging for you to kind of say, hey, I need support in this, or hey, I need, someone to kind of show up in this energy and assist me as I kind of move into this next thing. So I do think with the, friendship card and with the records card, that it is just kind of a reminder to move into that energy and just trust it as it's trying to show up for you at this current time. And I think the thing with this is, when I look at kind of the other keywords that come with this card, it talks about past lives, karmic contracts, vows, and agreements. And so maybe you need to go a little bit deeper into what those things mean for you. And maybe that is where you need to kind of lean into this energy of friendship as you kind of discover these challenges and these things. And so maybe there's different aspects that are currently affecting how these relationships and connections are working for you, because maybe it's been challenging for you to say, hey, I feel like there is this old connection to the past where it's a little bit challenging, where I feel like I'm confronting these two different aspects of myself within these relationships and these connections. And so it's hard for me to kind of break away and do my own thing. And maybe with friendship and this records card, it's a reminder for you to say, I don't have to do all of these things by myself. I don't have to just continuously show up alone and feel a little bit, I guess, left behind in some ways. And I think with the free will card, it has that same kind of energy of just reminding you that even if there are past patterns that have been affecting you or have felt like they are influencing a lot of the things that are happening in your current life, free will is an opportunity for you to understand that you get to choose how you're going to move forward from these things. The thing with patterns and the thing with, what's comfortable is that many of us feel like that's all we can do. We can't really get out of it. And I think with free will, it's a reminder and a empowering kind of like message for you that you get to choose. You get to choose how you're going to move into this next thing. And you don't have to do it the way that you've done it, especially if you feel like, oh, previous times I've done it this way. And so maybe with that like past life influence of like, oh, I've always done it this way, so it has to look this way. And maybe you've struggled with friendship this lifetime because of past life stuff. And so it's making it challenging for you to kind of reprioritize your relationships with yourself and what you need. I think free will is kind of a reminder for you to kind of reconnect to that energy and understand that you don't have to repeat the patterns of the past and you don't have to do life the way that you've been doing it. Now, vibras or vibes, it's telling you to kind of feel to see what's going on here. It's all about that flowing energy. It's about healing yourself. And maybe it's about honoring your personal self. And I think maybe that's why it's telling you that personal ceremony is needed, is to kind of get back into taking care of yourself, cleansing, grounding, taking time out to do what your physical self needs in a lot of ways so that your spiritual self can feel more connected, doing what your mental self needs so that your emotional self can feel more balanced. It's very much, to me, personal ceremony is just a reminder of doing those things that make you feel very connected to you and where you're at and make you feel grounded and present where you are at right now. And I think with vibras, it's just a reminder that we're just so energetically sensitive and we're constantly taking in energies, and we have to be very mindful of who's showing up in that, who is allowing us in that energy. How are we, going to utilize everything and transmute those things and alchemize this energy for something that maybe can help us for the future. And I think we tend to forget that a little bit as we kind of get caught up in our day-to-day lives, that other people's energies do tend to affect us. And so I am constantly trying to be very mindful of cutting away that energy at the end of the day, making sure like I am coming home and grounding myself, that I am, taking time out to kind of rebalance who I am and connecting to my vibe and what I have going on. And then finally, we have take back your power by putting your needs first. And I think that this is just a beautiful reminder, again, is that maybe you have forgotten, and maybe that's why there is this card of like, we need this personal ceremony because that'll allow you to take back your power. And it will really help you with cutting away from anything that you feel has been keeping you a little bit disjointed or afraid to kind of step into this next thing. And maybe that is sort of this like lesson from a past life where it's been hard for you to prioritize what your soul and body needs. And in friendship, maybe it's almost like a reminder. Sometimes my friends kind of show up and say, hey, you got to do these things, or hey, you got to take care of yourself, or hey, you're running yourself ragged. Because we don't always see ourselves completely and fully, especially when we're in the middle of like challenges and difficulties. And I think with taking back your power and really allowing yourself to say, this is what I need, this is what I want, again, really look at what your wishes are and how they're going to allow you to move forward. So thank you so much for joining me, pile number 2. I really appreciate you. I hope that this reading made sense. Take care, take it easy, and as always, make good choices. Bye. Hello, pile number 3. Thank you so much for joining me. Let's see what your messages are for today. I've already shuffled the deck, so let's see what we have here. The High Priestess, the 2 of Swords reverse, or 3 of Swords, Knight of Wands, Strength, and Ace of Swords reverse. Let's see. I don't think that, okay, we'll go this way. Yeah, not reversed. All right, let's pull one of these. So we have Phoenix, it's the right. We have a new life, funny, goes very well with the Phoenix energy. Use your personal power. Phoenix rising, 2 Phoenix cards, that's funny. And trust yourself and listen to your own intuition. All right, so let's start off with the tarot cards that I pulled for you. So the very first card we got is the High Priestess. Now, when I think of this energy, I think that it can kind of come off as like wild and hard to kind of pinpoint, in the sense of, yes, it is very intuitive. It is very much about, kind of the underbelly of life in a lot of ways, in the sense of really connecting to what your soul is kind of telling you right now. So the thing with the High Priestess is that because she is so connected to the intuitive aspects of life, that it makes it a little bit challenging to be in this world and in this life, because she's so attuned to everything, so connected to everything. And so I think with the High Priestess here is that she's almost saying, like, you need to find a balance between all of the things that you've been tuned into right now, and really discern, I guess is more the word. Sorry, my brain was like, I don't think that's the right word. Discern what is it that is actually going on, and how can you truly understand what the message is with this energy. Now, the High Priestess is this beautiful sort of energy, divine feminine, in the sense of the very divine intuitive feminine, not so much like the Empress card, which is more of just like the co-creator, fertility, that lushness, that just very like connected and grounded sort of like physical energy, in the sense of like walking both worlds, if that makes sense, because it's like she's here and she's also bringing a new life in. The High Priestess is more of that connection to the divine and what that means. It's very much like being an oracle, or, something along those lines, where it's like you're so much more than just a person. And so I think with the High Priestess, especially kind of given that it's like the first card, is that maybe it's saying you're so attuned and you're so connected that maybe it's been a little bit challenging to kind of discern what is intuition and what is just, what's actually going on around you. And so there may be a sense of maybe questioning a little bit as to why you're picking up on certain things, or why these things are kind of happening around you. Now, next to that, we have the 3 of Swords reverse. Sorry, I keep wanting to turn them around. So the 3 of Swords is usually a card of like sadness, isolation, heartbreak, loss. It can talk about grief, betrayal in a lot of different aspects, but especially with our romantic partnerships, with our interpersonal relationships. I think heartbreak and heartache and grief and loss can kind of happen in so many different aspects that I don't always like to just kind of say, oh, this is like somebody's broken your heart in a romantic partnership. I think if anything with the 3 of Swords reverse, it's almost saying like you've been through some challenges and some difficulties that have made you question what it is that you're picking up on and what it is that you are wanting. But with the 3 of Swords, I like to look at it as the swords are finally really falling away. So maybe you're not getting so caught up in the heartache and the loss or the grief, and you're not letting that be something that dictates how you're going to move forward or how you're going to move from this point on. Now, I think the other thing with this is, again, it's almost saying like, have you been isolating yourself? Have you been stuck in your sadness to the point to where you're not allowing yourself to kind of see the support that's available to you here, or you're not allowing yourself to kind of say, oh, there are people around me that care for me and love me and want to see me win and, are excited for me in different ways? Or are you too much in your head about what has been going on? Now, when I think of this energy, I also think of it as maybe you have been too caught up in that story of, I'm afraid to do anything because I have been hurt, or I'm afraid to get out there because I may be put in a situation again that feels uncomfortable for me. Now, next up, we have the Knight of Wands, which is a card of going after the things that you are creatively passionate about. This is fire. This is like messages coming in. This is like really the epitome of having a good time and enjoying yourself as you kind of go out and discover different things in this world. Now, when I think of the Knight of Wands, I think it's more of just kind of saying like, what are you willing to fight for when it comes to the things that you're passionate about? And I think with the Three of Swords reverse kind of behind it, kind of saying like, maybe this sadness and this isolation has allowed you to get very clear on who you are, what you want, and what you need. Now you can kind of get out into the world. Because with the High Priestess kind of starting all of this, it's like maybe you're like, I'm so attuned to so many different things that it's hard for me to get clear on who I am and what I want. But the Knight of Wands is an invitation to kind of say, okay, this is what I want. This is what I need. This is what is lighting me up. And when I think of the Knight of Wands, I think it's like someone who is just so excited to kind of get out there and to really say, all right, this is what is driving me. This is what's making me feel like things are finally moving. There's like a sense of momentum and travel. And so maybe it's saying, hey, it's an opportunity to kind of get back out into the world in ways that you haven't been getting. And let me see if these are crooked. All right. So next and underneath that, we have Strength, which to me is really just a reminder that we're constantly shifting, we're constantly growing, we're constantly learning so many different things. When I think of the Strength card, especially with this being the card of this year, which I know for a lot of us, like our strength is being tested. I think that this is kind of saying like, how can you kind of move back into understanding that controlling is not always how we get things done, if that makes sense. I think if anything, it's more of just recognizing how much strength there is in being vulnerable and sharing that intuitive, beautiful kind of sense of who we are. And I think with the Strength card, it's also a reminder to kind of honor who we are, what we want, what we need in so many different ways. Now, Strength to me is one of these cards that can feel a little bit confusing to receive whenever we're not really talking about like our spiritual lesson and what we need to do. I think that it's almost saying like, has your strength been tested? Have you been questioning if you have what it takes, the willpower to kind of move into this next thing? And I think it's also a reminder of kind of aligning yourself with the energies of what is going on around you in a lot of different ways. So while the card that comes before it is a Chariot, where it's almost saying like, all right, we're seeing that momentum, we're seeing that like synergistic kind of energy of like, let's get out there, let's do these things. Strength is kind of saying like, okay, what is going on in your environment and how are you thriving? What is going on in your life and how are you using that moving forward? How are you growing with that energy? And finally, we have the Ace of Swords, which I think is kind of saying like, you got to get clear on what you believe in. You got to really take some time out to reconnect to what is going on in your head and how are you communicating that? How are you connecting with others? The aces to me are always not just an invitation for opportunity, but I think that it's really about opening those doors in new ways. And I think the Ace of Swords is kind of saying like, where is your truth? Where do you feel empowered? How can you show up in this energy and feel a little bit more like this is being directed exactly as you need. Now, I think of swords as, it can be seen as like swift energy, but I feel like it's a little bit more withdrawn in the sense of, it's not going to feel like things are just like bam, bam, bam happening one after the other. I think the aces bring a little bit of swiftness, but I do think that this is almost saying like, what have you started previously and how is that growing? What has been, kind of building up in order for you to move into this energy so that you can really have the sort of things kind of come into your life the way that you need them to. So given all of these cards, I do think that maybe there's been a lot of reconnecting to your intuition in different ways, really growing from some of the grief that life has kind of brought to your doorstep, while really understanding that this is up to you to kind of take that step and to move into this next thing, recognizing that you have everything within you to be as successful as you need to be without having to try to control the entire situation. And then also getting very clear on what it is that you want, what it is that you need, so that you can kind of move into this next phase with a lot more ease and not feel like you're being held back in different ways. So it's funny, we got 2 Phoenix cards and a new life card. So obviously you are probably in a very big period of transition. And we did have this full moon in Scorpio. We just had Mercury retrograde finally end, in the sense we still have the shadow period for the next couple of weeks, but Mercury has stationed direct. So I think with Phoenix, it's almost saying what new life is trying to take root. What is it that maybe has burnt you down? And how can you rise up from that? How can you say, you know what? Yeah, it didn't really work out the way that I thought it was going to, or, I have suffered enough loss and grief in the situation. I'm not going to keep kicking my own butt about it. So I can kind of move into this next phase. And I think with the Phoenix card, it's just a reminder to reconnect to those different aspects and those different things within yourself that maybe you haven't really been paying too much attention to, but maybe it's time to, maybe there's a significant marker happening at this time. So whether that is like, oh, here is a lesson that I've been trying to overcome repeatedly. I feel like I am always meeting this lesson. And here we are again with this same sort of thing. How am I going to change the outcome moving forward? And I think it's really just kind of telling you, like, maybe there's an important stage here that you need to kind of honor. And maybe that is why we have this energy of new life, where it's almost saying, like, how can we honor our life moving forward? And what is it that we really need to understand in this new life? Because when I think of new life, it's almost saying, like, there is so much that needs to be established in order for that thing to happen, in so many different aspects, not just with like creation, but also like whenever we're building something, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of forethought and dedication, and essentially an understanding of how these things are going to kind of come together. And I think with new life, and even with the Phoenix Right card, it's almost saying like, hey, there's things that you haven't been honoring or paying attention to. And so you need to be very mindful of that energy. Now with Phoenix Rising, same sort of thing. There's offerings, there's shape-shifting, there's clearing generational, maybe trauma and things from the past, especially that High Priestess card here. It's about, journeying into yourself, through that darkness, through, rising up from the ashes, basically. And for many of us, we've been, trying to do a lot of different ancestral work. A lot of us have been doing a lot of like reconnecting in so many different ways, whether that's like intuitively, whether that's energetically, whether that's like just physically and mentally, to different aspects of, life that have maybe affected us in different ways. And I think that with the Phoenix Rising and Phoenix Right card and the New Life card, it's almost saying like, okay, these things that have felt very challenging and hard are what are going to allow you to kind of move into this next phase in a much more supported way, so that you don't feel like it's just you doing all of this stuff by yourself. Now, we have use your personal power. I think that with this card, it is just kind of saying, hey, you have forgotten how beautifully powerful you are on your own. Maybe you've been kind of focusing on where your power comes from or how other people have supported you. But I think with this, it's almost like this Knight of Wands where it's like you're getting out there, you're discovering things, and then you're like, boom, strength card. You understand who you are. And I think with using your personal power, it is a reminder of that, of just really moving into this energy and trusting how this energy is trying to work for you at this time. And I think with using your personal power, it is really saying, when are you going to step fully into who you are? How can you honor those different aspects of yourself that maybe you've forgotten a little bit or have felt a little bit insecure about? So finally, we have trust yourself and listen to your own intuition. It's so easy for us to get distracted and to listen to the external noise that we tend to overlook or forget that we need to kind of move back into this high priestess energy of trusting ourselves, listening to our intuition, even if sometimes our intuition leads us into situations that do bring grief and heartache. Our intuition is trying to allow us to learn in this life, right? It's Earth School. And for many of us, it's like if something happens and we're like, well, I thought it was going to be this way and it didn't work out the way that I thought I was going to. So obviously my intuition is wrong. I am guilty of this. Number one, let me admit that now. Number two, I've also recognized and realized that everything that has occurred, whether it has turned out the way that I had anticipated or not, has been something that has allowed me to grow my strength and to recognize that it's okay for me to get very clear on what I believe because of those experiences. So I think by trusting yourself and listening to your own intuition, you're going to give yourself an opportunity to reconnect in much deeper ways, even if things don't always come together the way that you had anticipated. This is about you really recognizing that you're constantly rising up from the ashes. And I know it's not fun because I feel like that is something I'm always going through. And I get a little frustrated too. But I hope that these messages make sense. As always, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching and spending time with me. Have a good one. Take care and make good choices. Bye.